All right, so here's your past life spread. So what we're gonna do is look at where we are, what you did with the majority of your time, an important day with the relationships and feelings involved, another important day, relationships, feelings, death card, lesson. And we'll get hints of time throughout, all right? So all I'm gonna do is relay to you the images and impressions that are coming through, and your job is going to be to try to make connections where you can based off of what comes through in your current life kind of thing, like what connects, and I'll try to help how I can. So just keep in mind there are a couple of ways to make connections. One way would be a direct connection, which means that what comes through here, you can directly connect with what's going on in your life, and then opposite connection is what comes through here, you can connect as far as like, oh no, that's completely the opposite way I went. So like for example, we see a lot of people who die from smoking come back in their current life and they can't stand being around smoke, like that kind of thing. So that's the opposite kind of, yeah, you get it. All right, so let's go ahead and begin. Where we're going here is the Americas card. So the Americas card is North, Central, and South America, and it feels like we are being plopped into North America, and it feels like we are going somewhere where there's a city that is, it's like a bustling city. So we're not like in a country or rural kind of thing. It almost feels like, it's not even suburban, but it'd be like on the edge of a city. So you have a lot of access to the city. So there's a lot, the feeling is very like hustle bustle. And it feels like we are looking, I'm trying to see here, it looks like this is a female aspect of you. So this is a female life, but there's something about this female that is very driven, which people would consider masculine, because it's almost like, okay, the image that comes through is if you've ever seen the movie Little Women, and the character Jo, who's a writer, and so she's pretty and feminine and knows all of the ways to be a woman in the times. However, her heart is an artist and she's driven to write, and she has no interest in, you know, the dutiful wifely thing, right? Like that kind of thing. So that's the person we're getting. I guess you can say it kind of feels like a tomboy, but on the outside you don't see it, if that makes sense. And so that also feels like we're looking at someone who is very balanced. However, based on the time period we're looking at, what it feels like is even though this person is balanced, society would consider her not balanced because of her driven desire to, I want to say there's something ambitious about her of wanting to do something, just like, again, Jo from Little Women wanted to write a book. This feels more like something, it is something creative, but I don't know if it's like a book, but it feels like very creative, like there's something she wants to accomplish within her. And it's almost like where she knows that men can do this, she sees men do this, men of privilege, it feels like, especially, and when I say of privilege, now it feels like, as far as the time period goes, that's the language they would use, of privilege, because it feels like this woman, this aspect is of privilege, which for a man, it would make what she wants easier, but for her, it makes it harder. So, you know, and it's almost like, if anything, it's like cusping on the 1900, like right at the 1900 mark, which I'm getting a lot of readings for that era, so to speak. So I guess we're seeing some people needing to see that era on a collective level more than others at this time, because it does have to do with moving through society based on your own desire and authentic self at this time, and being open about it, versus back in that time you just simply could not be open about it unless you were like high aristocracy and, you know, couldn't get I don't know, it's just like, it just seems like it would be much harder back then. So we are seeing a lot of people waking up to being their most authentic self. So, by the way, get a notebook and pen if you do want to like write down, jot as we go along. But you want to make connections how you can. So we're looking at someone here who might have what we would consider to be like masculine tendencies, even though it's balanced. So it's this idea of like, what's really coming through more than anything at this point is a message of making sure that you are going after, behaving, expressing yourself in ways that are most aligned with your true expression of what you want to get out, and not based on one, who you've always been or how you've always expressed yourself for the sake of appeasing others, if that's the case, or two, so one, expressing yourself not based on how you've been in the past, but allowing your, authentic in the moment, in the present moment self come through, or two, what is it? It's not the past. It's about something about stepping outside of a comfort zone. So they're showing, so it's like a box and thinking outside the box, but stepping outside of your comfort zone and expressing yourself in ways that might not even seem natural to you, so long have they not been expressed in that way, but it takes doing it in order to get comfortable with it. So if there is something that you are looking to do with your, like if you have, I want to say even like recently gotten kind of like an urge to try something new, almost like a new hobby, a new idea, even like travel somewhere new that you've never wanted to travel before. Like there's something new, it feels like new. And here's the thing, if it resonates with you, great. If not, just tuck it in the back of your mind for later, because sometimes things come up in weeks, months, or even up to a year kind of thing after these kinds of readings. So just tuck it in the back of your mind if it doesn't resonate, but if it does, great. But there's something new, and it feels like it's going to take you being as true to your expression as possible, almost like practicing a new something about yourself. Yeah, okay, so what we're looking at is the idea of making sure that it's not making sure. Okay. Sorry this is like choppy. It's an unusual way to, what's coming through is a little unusual or tricky to explain. So just bear with me. Okay. It's the idea that for you to evolve or experience things that you want to experience, even if they haven't been like named yet, even if you haven't spoken about it, but it's been a thought in your mind, you're going to have to look around and see if you surround yourself with people who make you feel like you have to maintain yourself in a certain distinct way, rather than expand out of your normal routine of, let's say, expression, but expanding out in that way and expressing yourself in that way, while it might seem unappealing to some, is what has to be done for you to move in the direction where you will ultimately feel the most sense of freedom. So if freedom is important to you, the feeling of being free, and not just free like to move around, but like free emotionally, again, expressions coming through. And this also is pertaining to the boundaries of society. So it's almost like take a look at where you are refining yourself or making or smoothing yourself out so that others, it's like, I don't want to say that you are putting a false air up, because I don't feel like that's the case, but there might be something about what you do to make others comfortable where you smooth it out. Like almost like if you're having a bad day, you might smile and be like, what can I do for you? Like that kind of thing. Where it's like not letting others, again, it's this whole like not allowing authentic expression to come through, or not wanting to be a burden to others so you don't authentically express. Like if you are having a bad day, like it's okay to say I'm having a bad day. So there's something there, and if anything comes to mind for you with what we've been going through, you have to trust that that's what we're talking about. If something comes to your mind about the authentic expression of yourself, that is what we're talking about. And it's coming through for some reason. So just, again, bear with me. Now, what you can connect to this card was the idea that we're looking at someone in the hustle bustle of things. So that can mean a couple things. That can mean, one, that you thrive and do well when you're around people, when you're in the middle of stuff, when you're in a city, we'll say, like how some people prefer the quiet country or the quiet suburbs. Other people are like, I love the city, the people, how it makes me feel alive, that kind of thing. And so it can either be like directly like, hey, maybe you would do well if you went to a place that was, even though I know like with COVID and everything, like wear masks, be safe and be smart. But if you're looking for like creative juices to get flowing, I feel like, and it's funny because most of the time I'm like, I tell people to go, go to the water. Like a lot of people need like that quiet space, and it feels like you would actually do well walking where there's like when when there's a parade, is like what they're showing me is like this a parade, and you're not there to see the parade. You're there to see the happenings of all the people who are there for the parade. So it's not it's almost like a removed observer mode. So this can connect in a way if you're a people watcher, there's more to it than that. If you're a people watcher, it's not just because you enjoy it. There's actually something about it that can get your creative juices flowing and kickstarted, as far as even like starting projects, finding a life purpose. And I'm saying a life purpose because there's more than one for a lot of people. So like, let's say you're in a transitionary period right now where you're like, what do I do next with my life? What's the next, what's it bringing me? This would be a message for you to be a people watcher. Go and observe the observers. Like, go be the person that watches the people who are watching people from a bench. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're watching the people watchers. So it's like a double removed thing, but it's an interesting thing because this is also the concept of like non-attachment, as far as like not getting caught up in the drama of all the city hustle bustle people, but being aware of them, simply not getting caught up and just watching it. It's like they're showing, okay, so they're kind of showing me like, you know how people can get an ant farm and it's like, it's almost like a 2D, almost like, so you could see all the ants at work as they're going through everything. They're not hidden from you, but they're working and they're busy doing their job. It's like that. It's like watching the ant farm outside of it and not being part of it. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. And I feel like that will help you in some way. There's something about it that's very like creative juices flowing kind of thing. So just keep making connections where you can when it comes to that. And we're gonna go to the next card. Yeah. Okay. So the next card here, this is the what you do with the majority of your time occupation card or whatever. And here we have an artist card. So it's good because it's coming together with the whole something about creative juices flowing. So I'm just trying. So what comes through with this card, and what I got a glimpse of while I was shuffling, was the Louvre in Paris. And there's something about it, particularly that they were showing me, that in front of the, so in the, when you go to the Louvre, there's a glass pyramid before you go in. And like if you were to Google it, and I kind of want you to go Google it if you don't mind, like go Google the Louvre and look at the glass pyramid structure and see how you feel about that. And it's not supposed to really do anything for you. It's supposed to be like, if you are triggered in a way of like emotional, like if it moves you, is what we're looking for. Because there's something about, and I don't know if this is what might be the, something in your life where if you're feeling stuck in a way where you don't feel moved lately, it's like this is what this is going to be for. Like this, I feel like all these instructions, so to speak, like whatever's coming through is the idea of like, so that you're moved, or you feeling moved, emotionally moved, when something is just so beautiful, it moves you, like that kind of thing. You want to allow yourself to find things that do that to you and allow it to happen and allow those emotions to run through you, because I feel like that would be very, very beneficial to you as far as when it comes to what we were talking about, your expression, feeling authentic, because it puts you in touch with those deep parts of you that a lot of people don't express outwardly. When they feel moved, they could feel it, but like, it's like, you can't help but cry. And it's almost like, it's almost like what's coming through is like, allow yourself to cry or allow yourself to feel moved more, if that makes sense. Or even like put yourself in a position where you feel moved, because there's also, they're bringing me back to like the ant farm and the people watching, being outside of it and not of it and watching it. It can be very moving when you like look at how the world is working and how people are interacting, and like it's the idea of like people passing by each other and making eye contact for a brief moment and never seeing each other again. And there's something so like oddly beautiful about that concept and allowing yourself to feel moved by it. Like the idea that you're watching people and they'll never know. Like they never know that they're being observed even lovingly from afar by a stranger, and allowing yourself to like take that in and feel that, if that makes sense. But this can also mean that you may feel a disconnect from humanity at times, from human beings, from other human beings. You might feel a disconnect. And this is also, these are ways to feel connected, but also understand that when you feel disconnected, to also honor that as part of the human experience. Just like anything that you feel is off or wrong, or you feel like, you know, like, I'm not very comfortable right now. That's part of the human experience, and the more you can kind of like, I want to say, feel comfortable in the uncomfortable moments, that is very expansive. That's a whole nother level of living. And I feel like that is where we want to get, or that is maybe where you're going, or where you're like touching on right now. So, okay, so we're back to the art card, we're back to the Louvre. So this also does feel like someone, okay. So it feels like what we're actually looking at is someone who desires to be almost like running a gallery. I don't know if it's so much about having her work in a gallery, but I feel like she loves the idea, this aspect for some, loves the idea of being around art all day, every day. And it's like, she's like, I would rather run a gallery than get married. And it feels like, based on her status in society, is like she's expected to eventually marry. But I feel like there's something where she pulls strings. It's almost, you know, I just want to go ahead and say, it feels like we start out in North America, and it feels like somewhere where it's like there's like a rich history. They keep putting me in this like South, like a big Southern, almost like I want to say like Charleston during its heyday. Like it could even be New Orleans during its heyday. It's a place that was like during its heyday, art, music, gathering, like just hustle bustle, alive. It's almost like the New York of the South. I don't know if there is a New York of the South, but if you were to Google the New York of the South, see what that is, or try to find this place, and if you happen upon it, you'll know, because it will vibe with you. It will resonate. You will read the city's name, or even if I just said Charleston and that like clicked for you, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. The resonating is what's important. So, but it feels like wherever you start out, you actually do go to Europe for art. It's almost like how you get through it. This person's clever because it's like she has to figure out a way to get what she wants, but make it look like it's not her idea, or that if it's her idea, it's like, oh, but daddy and mommy, I can go find a nice husband over in Europe if I study. And oh, okay, you know what's so funny? Okay, what's coming through is the movie Little Women again. Okay, maybe you need to watch this movie. I'm sure you've probably already seen it. But in Little Women, the youngest daughter, the youngest sister, if you remember, if you've seen it, she goes to, I think, Paris, or like she goes overseas to Europe to learn to paint as an artist. But she's also very like proper and plans on getting married and having kids, and right, if you remember that. So that's what this feels like. She's like, oh, if you send me there, I will be even more qualified to be the wife to someone higher up. And isn't that a good idea? And I feel like that's what gets her there. So I feel like we're actually jetting over to Europe, and there's something about it that is so fulfilling there. So if you've ever had a pull towards, I want to say in particular, Paris, like it feels like so like Paris. It's like an art hub, and there is something about this artist that likes, in particular, the modernness of of glass. And I don't even know if that glass structure was around during this time. I don't know if they built it later at the Louvre, you know, like we were talking about. But it feels like there's something about her that likes the look of the modern, what we would consider more modern is like glass, reflective, things that are reflective. And that could be brought up just simply like as a random, if you randomly happen to like the look of like, what's coming through is like the glass, like the look of glass greenhouses, right? Like how they're so, like they're modern, but they're also like full of life. Like, so it's like glass, but then it's like plants which are green. And this aesthetic is coming through because sometimes aesthetics come through in these readings that can help you as far as your surroundings go. So your environment, the aesthetic of your environment may be very important for you at this time in particular, for you to feel, I want to say again, like inspired. That's the word, inspired. So look at the idea of glass with like living plants in your environment, like how you arrange your home, how you decorate, or whatever it might be. And that might be a really good way to go for you for inspiration, to feel inspired or motivated or less cluttered or whatever it might be. So just again, connect however you can with this. You might also be an artist. You might love art. You might love the idea of art history. Maybe that's something you wanted to major in. Maybe that's something you're interested in. Maybe you love looking at art history or art books when you go to the bookstore, or you collect them, or you know what I mean? So we are looking at someone here who just loves being around art. And even though we did talk about the modern-esque, like, glass kind of like clean look, that's not the kind of art she likes. Here in particular, it's the idea of the great artists of history in the Louvre, like walking among Rembrandts kind of deal. So that might be something you can connect with randomly, like, is your favorite artist Rembrandt? Like, is your favorite artist one of those Renaissance painters? Like that kind of thing? Or is that the kind of art you like? And if not, that's fine. But just, you know, little things you can be making connections with. But I'm going to leave you with that card. Keep making connections. We're going to go to the first important day here. Oh, but I do have to mention, actually, because of what happened, because this aspect had to kind of be sneaky in order to get what she wants, you might have a hard time in your current life being direct with people to get what you want. And or you might find that the opposite is that in this life you are very direct because you're like, I'm not going to just like, you know, I'm not going to do, basically, like, your soul is like, I already had to go through a life where I had to be like indirect and kind of be sneaky to get what I want. And sneaky's not bad, you know what I mean? So in this life, I'm going to be direct. I'm going to ask what I, you know, for what I want, when I want it, blah, 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 like that kind of thing. So there are a couple ways you can connect with the idea of the communication style here in order to get what you wanted. Okay. So the first important day, this is the trauma card. So we're probably looking at some kind of trauma, and it feels like what we're looking at traumatically is emotional or mental. And then here's the spouse card, and this is happy. Okay, so what we're looking at later, hold on. Okay, so what we're looking at, it feels like we're looking at years later. It feels like 1 or 2 years, not long at all. But we're looking at a couple of years after you go to, I want to say study. It's really, I feel like it's learning, yeah, I don't know what kind of thing you did over there, but it had to do with the museums, it had to do with art. But you went to technically study, and what this feels like, the trauma is, it feels like you got word, like while you were doing what you loved here and paying no mind to things, it's like your parents found a match for you back home. And so it feels like, hold on. Yeah, so that it's interesting because the trauma and the happy card, right? It feels like what's going on is you're having a huge panic attack. Hold on. Panic attack. So it feels like you're having like a panic attack because you're going to be taken away from this life where it feels independent and creative and colorful. And it feels like this happy card is not how you feel. It feels like how society thinks you should feel at the match that your parents made for you, because it is so it feels like it's so elite. Like it feels like this person is like unparalleled, or like what your parents never expected that they would find to be interested in I guess in you, so to speak, just because it feels like the match is spades above your family's finances, even though you come from a very wealthy family. Almost like I want to say it'd be equivalent to American royalty, but it's, no, not royalty. So it feels like we're looking at someone who is very much feeling the confines of society and her place in it and her gender and her role as a daughter, a dutiful daughter, now becoming a dutiful wife kind of thing. There's other stuff in here. So this is also a panic attack. This is anxiety at having to break ties off with, it feels like either there's a, maybe not quite a lover, but a love interest, but also while you've been there, this aspect of you has been weaving fantastical futures for herself. Like, well, I'm here, so now I can take off and live my life. And it's a bit unrealistic for the times, but it feels like the message coming through for you today is that whatever you dream for yourself now, that you've chosen to be born in this time, is not fantastical, and it's not beyond it's not beyond what your imagination is allowing. Like what you imagine now, you can manifest. It can be yours because you don't have the hindrances or restrictions of the time period of the thing we're looking at here. So if you feel like you do have limitations or restrictions, you have to confront those head on and understand that they may very well be illusions, and that you might be upholding certain limitations on yourself just based off of what you've been taught is the right thing to do, or that you have to maintain a certain thing, or the idea of not wanting to look bad in certain decisions or actions that you take or make, and realizing that that all actually has to do with you and how you don't want to be perceived a certain way, and you have every right to do that. But if you want to go after something or live a life that you've maybe fantasized about or dreamed about, there might have to be certain decisions that you make, but you can make them. Like you're not limited in, I feel very much like what they're saying is you are not limited so much in the ways that you think you are, and that a lot of limitations that you might have or put on yourself are illusions, and to take a look at them. Literally, like in a nutshell, that's what it is. So this aspect of you, there's trauma because the realization that she's being recalled. She's being like reeled back home, reeled back in. Okay, come on, come back home. Time to get married. Come get away from your girlish pursuits of living the dream and come home and do your duty. And she does. And she leaves and she does. She comes home and she puts a smile on for everyone. So it's just another message in there. Like this might be really silly, but like you literally don't have to smile for people. It's nice to smile. Like I like smiling. I generally smile, when I'm out and about, because like that's just I like it. But some people force a smile, and this would be a time for you to learn not to force a smile when you're not feeling it. So just a thought. But keep making connections where you can when it comes to this day. This also might connect with you in the way of how you feel about relationships. Like in your current life, you might just be like, I just need to be in love. Like I need love, 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 love. Like it's not about arrangement. It's not about how it looks on paper. You might have found in your life already that maybe you have made choices because it looked good on paper, or because maybe your family and friends were like, this person's perfect for you. And maybe in your heart of hearts, you were like, but overall you're like, well, it is nice, and he does or she does, whatever, likes me, and we get along. Here's the difference. What's coming through is the difference of, I'll be with this person because I find them companionable, because we get along really well, and that's it. There's no fire, there's no spark, There's no passion. There's no like dream making or dream weaving with with people, with lovers of the past or partners of the past or whatever it might be. And so it could be that you come back in this life where you're like, I need love, I need passion, I need like chemistry is what it is. Because it feels like here it's not about chemistry at all. It's about what looks good. And you guys are handsome together here. It looks nice. Nice young man. It looks like a perfect match. But it's like there's no like passion, or the passion that's here is like very forced on your end kind of deal. So yeah, just consider, how this connects with you in regards to your relationships in your life, romantic relationships in particular. And, if you're in a relationship now, just to, make sure that you're making sure that you are being, true with yourself, real with yourself. And if you need something in your relationship, you need to ask for it. And even if it puts you in a vulnerable place, because if you're going to have a romantic relationship, this is the time to be with someone who you can be vulnerable with and safe in that vulnerability with. So, again, connections wherever you can. We're going to go to the next important day. So this is the war card, and it could be a war within yourself, within the mind, emotions, or it could be a war, like a war is happening. This is the soulmate card, and this is like a depressive kind of card, like melancholy kind of thing. So what's coming through now, it feels like we're looking years later, and it feels like you've had at least a couple of kids, and the reason why you are so happy to have the kids is because it's like you created them, so the love for them is so palpably like authentic, and it feels like your kids in this life are the only things that brought out authentic joy in you since the time you went overseas and experienced that. And it feels like we're looking like at least a decade later, at least. And it feels like what's coming through now is that when you were there, you were in love with someone. There was someone where there was incredible chemistry with, and it almost feels like that whole typical French artist kind of thing, where it's like, it's not like he was a vagabond or anything, but just like that was his pursuit, and you fell in love with that because it's almost like you saw in him what you wished you could be. And so maybe it wasn't so much loving that person, but loving the idea of who they were, and that there was someone out there living the life that you wish you could live, even if it was like even being a man, like that kind of thing, like, well, men get to do that, like that kind of thing. And it feels like we're looking down here that it feels like there's news that you get that he's passed or something happened where he's died. And it feels like this is a huge reminiscing period and a huge, it's almost like, I want to say you go into grieving for at least a year, if not the rest of your life. But like there's good year of grieving where you couldn't tell anyone. Because it's like you can't admit like that you were in love with someone before, or this person like was such an influence on you all this time, or you know what I mean, that kind of thing. Like basically the person that we're looking at, and he might have died in war, like I don't know, but like it could, but I feel like the war is like within you because you can't express yourself. You can't say like the man I loved is no longer here, and you know what I mean? Like you don't even have girlfriends you can talk to about this, it feels like. So in your current life, again, the expression comes up where you might feel like you might feel like a burden to people if you talk about yourself in a way where you're allowing yourself to express grieving about something or mourning or like dissatisfaction. And if that's you, if in your life you feel like you don't express your dissatisfaction often enough or at all because you don't want to be a burden to people through your expression, this is a message for you to try to find the people who encourage you to speak about your true authentic feelings in the moment. Make sure you have that friend. Make sure you like be open to finding those people if you haven't already. And how you can start is by just trying like to say something that isn't like, it's not like protected speech, I want to say. Like, that's what's coming through, is protected speech. And I feel like they're saying protected speech in the way of, like, again, where the concept earlier, where we were talking about smoothing what you say out so that it doesn't bother people, smoothing it down, or making, like, simplifying something, or, but, like, just try it out with people, like, you know, like, oh, I'm having a bad day. Oh, I'm really sad today, actually. Or you could just be like, I don't know, I'm just feeling kind of down. You know, like, I'm feeling down about whatever, and, like, see how people react. And the people, you know, you need to be selective about who you have around you, the energy you have around you, because you want people around you who encourage your expression, who don't judge you, who validate your feelings. That's very important. So, just connect where you can with this. But, you know, the soulmate card is speaking about that person you met over when you were in France doing your thing. The soulmate comes in. It's not about the soulmate being the person you have to end up with. It's about someone you meet in life that affects you so profoundly, that reflects back to you truths about yourself that you can't deny, that make you think and make you want to be better and make you want to be authentic and express yourself. And that's the thing, is this, it's almost like this guy that you had known mirrored back to you the things that you wish you could mirror out to the world or reflect to the world, but couldn't, because of the role that you had to play based on the times that you in your current life now don't have to do that anymore. You get to choose the role. Even if you've identified in a role up till now your whole entire life, you can still choose to wake up and expand that role and step out of that role and assume a new role. That's where I was talking about the illusion of limitation. It's all in your imagination. So if you want to be bigger or assume a new role, it only takes your imagination, and then for you to step into it, to make a choice to express yourself a different way. And then if it makes you uncomfortable, then, you know, adjust. But it can't hurt, you know? Allow this to be a time of, like, self-discovery. And it's almost like this card here, more than anything, feels like a message of, like, make sure that you are living right now in a way where you won't regret it later, where you look back and said, oh man, I really wish I made that decision. I really wish I made that choice. I really wish I took that step. I really wish I worked on this during that time, because by now I would feel this way. Like that kind of thing. So just again, connect however you can here. And we're going to go ahead and go to the death card. So this is the burn baby burn card, and what comes through right away, it feels like there's a fever, and it feels like it might be like one of those things where a bad winter, where a sickness kind of goes through the land, or the region I should say, and it feels like you come down with the sickness, almost like a pneumonia kind of feel, and it feels like you're burning up is what the burn card is. It's a fever, and so it feels like you die of pneumonia, quite frankly, in wintertime. So the only connection that you would make from this would be if you have an immune system in the winter, or maybe you did when you were younger, or whatever it was, where you noticed in the wintertime you would come down with a cold, bronchitis, pneumonia kind of thing, and that just happens sometimes as a lingerer from a death of another life. Let's see if there's anything else with that. Yeah, I don't know. Keep making connections where you can with that. We're going to go to the lesson. So the lesson here is love others. And you really fulfilled this lesson. Like you did. You did your duty. That's what this card is for this life. Loving others is being a dutiful daughter and wife, and assuming the role that would kind of enable others around you to assume their role appropriately. There's very much an appropriateness to this. And the loving others card, there's something appropriate about, like, I won't be selfish and I won't live my dreams because I'll come home and I'll marry the man that my parents want me to marry, and I'll do the right thing and have kids and take care of my kids and you know, like that kind of thing. So what it is in your current life, you might be someone who is phenomenal at loving other people and showing your love to other people and making other people feel loved. You might like be phenomenal at having a motherly energy, a sisterly energy. People might say that to you. You might know that in this current life, like you've got it down. So now this life, this card is no longer it doesn't apply. Like, you've already learned this lesson. So now in this life, starting at least now, if you haven't already, it's about self-love. You got the loving others down. Great. Now it's time to love yourself and fill your love bucket and see how you feel about taking steps towards that, because that's what this is all about. When I talk about getting creative juices flowing, it's not for other people, it's for you. And to see what comes of that, to focus on you now and building whatever, I want to say, like, whatever world you want to build for yourself. It needs to, like, happen. If you're not doing it yet, you need to start doing that now and just focus on you and realizing that that's not selfish, or redefining what selfish means, which is to give yourself priority. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's the right thing to do. Prioritize yourself now. Like, now is your time. So anyway, keep making connections where you can with that. And we did mention the time period, and it's just like, you know, a little thing about connecting with that is if you've always been drawn to that time. In fact, it's almost like, I want to say, go look at depictions of Paris in the year like 1900 and see if that pulls at you, or if that's ever been of interest to you in any way. But yeah, so there's your past life. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're able to make some connections, and thanks for letting me read you.